Hi, I'm Mo Wolf, CEO of Little Honeys LLC. We make your Bee Rescue Propolis Care and your Bee Energized Raw Bee Pollen products. I wanted to take a few minutes and just introduce you to the ladies that are responsible for Bee Rescue Propolis Care and Bee Energized Raw Bee Pollen products, and that is some of our honeybees. These are some of the bees that I brought in from the field just a few days ago, and they are with me here in the office, and as you can see, they're a little bit active up above here. These ladies here are old enough to go out and forage, and they'd like to be out gathering some nectar. And by this evening, they will be, because they'll be back out in their colony. I wanted to not just introduce you, but talk about them a little bit functionally so that you can understand them a bit more, and you can understand why we fell in love with these beautiful creatures. Now, I mentioned that these ladies here are on the glass and they're trying to go out and forage, and again, they will be out there within a few hours. These ladies on this frame are working with the wax. Some of them are remodeling the wax to pull it out and make it a little bit closer to the glass. Some of them are uncapping the capped honey that's in there that was put in there for their food storage while they're on this observation soiree. And they will be uncapping that stored honey, and they will be literally walking around with feeding it to their sisters. And they're a beautiful, functional family is what a beehive boils down to. Most of us in the Homo sapien world there's very few people on this earth that can actually say that their household, their family, is not dysfunctional in some form. Well, unless there's something drastically wrong with a bee colony, each colony is not dysfunctional. Each colony is functioning just fine the way God intended. Now, I mentioned that these ladies right here are drawing wax. They are pulling out honey to feed to their sisters, and if we had a second camera here, I'd zoom in and I'd show you some of what their faces look like while they're working with that capped honey. And it's a beautiful sight. You can see their proboscis, their tongue come out and lap up some of that honey. Down below here, you see a whole mass of bees, and you wonder what it is that they're doing. Well, for those of you that are wondering that, you would be very interested to know that there's a wonderful temperature difference between where the bee mass is and where it's a little bit bare on the comb. It's warmer where that mass of bees is, and it's warmer because their bodies produce heat. Well, to answer your question, what are they doing down here? Well, there's capped brood down there. Capped brood are basically babies that are going from that larval stage into the adult bee stage. That they're undergoing that process of metamorphosis that you and me, we all learned about that stage when we were in 5th grade, 4th grade. Some of you probably 2nd grade. It's a very basic functional change of the animal state. What's beautiful about it is, with the honeybee, not every metamorphic change is the same. For the worker bee, it takes 21 days from the time that egg is laid by mama, the queen, to the time that they come hatching out. Now, some of these ladies are starting to hatch out. We'll see if we can get a close-up here in a little while. So 21 days ago, this little lady down here who's starting to poke her head out, she was laid as an egg. So for the worker, again, 21 days. For a drone, the male population, it takes 24 days from the time they're laid as an egg to the time they come hatching out. Now, what's the difference between a drone and a worker? Well, again, the workers are female, the drones are male. Now, one of the other unique, trivial questions that you might want to know about is, Well, genetically, the worker bees are diploid, which means they have two sets of genetic source, a mother and a father, the queen and some other drone. The male bees, the drones, are haploid. They only contain half of the genetic information because they come from an unfertilized egg. The queen has the ability to lay either fertilized or unfertilized eggs. If she's going to lay a fertilized egg, it becomes a female. If she lays an unfertilized egg, it becomes a male, a drone. Now, does that mean that the drone is unfunctional? No, he's a fully functional bee. However, his job is not that of a worker bee. A worker bee's job is to clean, repair, work with the larvae, make sure that they're fed, protect the colony. That's why the worker bee has a stinger. Her other job is to go out and forage and gather nectar and pollen and bring it in, and even propolis and make it and bring it back in. She's the only one capable of producing royal jelly to feed the larva. But what then does the drone do? Well, his job is to, number one, go out and find virgin queen and breed with her, so that way his genetics can get passed on into another colony. The other thing that he does is he provides an insulative barrier between certain parasites and the rest of the colony. Back about 10 years ago, it was discovered that the varroa mite tends to attack the drone population first. So what became a standard procedure for a lot of beekeepers was to take these frames, these structures right here, and make them in a way so that the bees will produce only drone larva comb on that frame, basically making the cells on which the bees will draw out the comb, making those cells a lot larger than the normal comb. Well, that's going to tell the queen, unfertilized egg goes in here. So she will lay that unfertilized egg and you'll end up with a frame full of drones. Well, the practice was to get that frame filled up with drone larvae, and then as soon as those drone larvae were capped, closed over, and that metamorphic change started, then they would take that frame out and they'd put it in the freezer to kill everything in there. And that would get rid of a lot of the varroa mites that were harassing the colony. The other thing they would do is they would take something called formic acid, which is, yes, it's a natural product. It's an acid that's produced to a certain extent within a lot of arthropod Hymenoptera creatures. However, it's in unnatural amounts in these formic acid patties, and they will take what's called a formic acid patty, a cloth sponge surrounded in plastic with some holes poked into it that has been saturated in this formic acid, and they'll put it on the top of the hive, and those fumes are just terrible. They'll burn your nose and your eyes as you walk back talking like this. It's just terrible, and it gets in there and it kills the varroa mite. But here's the problem. It's not just killing varroa mite. It's also killing your larva, which means you wipe out an entire generation of bees just to deal with varroa mite. Well, years ago, I posed the question, why can't you behaviorally deal with the varroa mite? There was some speculation that the Russian honeybee didn't have a problem with varroa mite infestation. Yeah, you'd find varroa mite in there, but it wasn't a problem with the hive. Well, the reason put forth at that time was because the Russian honeybees have a tendency to groom one another, kind of like monkeys at a zoo, or some of my relatives at family reunions. If any of my relatives are watching, I'm sorry. Don't throw chairs at me at the next family reunion. See, this is why they don't let me go to the family reunions. Not that I'm grieving, but, you know, work with me. Well, these ladies, I just lost where I was. I went for a joke and I lost it. See what my wife has to deal with? Poor thing. The formic acid goes in there and it kills everything. The freezing of the frames kills everything. Well, how is that a natural way to deal with these varroa mites? Well, at the time when I first mentioned, why can't you just breed for this grooming behavior? I was told, Mo, you just leave that science to us. It's all right. You can't. Nobody's really proven empirically that you can breed for this behavior. Well, you know what? Just because you haven't developed a test to measure the results doesn't necessarily mean that it's an impossibility, that it's not taking place. Just because you can't quantify reality doesn't necessarily mean reality is not existing. Whoa, we can get philosophical on that. Now, I started doing some more research. I started calling some beekeepers that I'd made acquaintance with over in Europe, around the United States even, and Canada, that deal with Russian honeybees, and I'd say, hey, are you guys having problems with varroa mites? And they'd kind of laugh and they'd say, no, not really. We have them in the colonies, but it's not a problem. Well, do you medicate for them? No, we don't do that. Do you use the drone frames? Freeze the drones and kill them? No, we don't bother with that. We want to use those frames for honey production and for brood production. All right. I might not be able to quantify it and put on a number as to what's going on with the effectiveness of that procedure, the behavioral trait, but I do know that it's working. So I got my hands on some of these Russian ladies, and I started incorporating their genetics into some of our colonies, and you know what? I found that those colonies that I started breeding, looking for this behavior and breeding this behavior into the bees, I found that those colonies didn't have the problems with varroa mite that the untreated colonies had. Some of the other colonies were just struggling to stay alive with the varroa mite problem. Well, that caused me to start incorporating these genetics into more and more of our colonies until today. All of our bees have exhibited some of that same behavioral trait, and we might have varroa present in some of our colonies, but it's not a problem. Our bees are not stressed out. Now, you may hear me in these videos talking about stress on bees. Why is stress an issue? Well, stress for the honeybee works the same way stress does on a human being. Stress weakens the body. Now, in the human being, stress causes cortisol to be dumped into the body, which suppresses the immune system and causes all kinds of inflammation and other problems. Within the bee body, it's very similar. Now, I don't know if the bee has cortisol. That's shame on me. I should know what their stress hormone is. But I do know this. I do know that when a honeybee becomes, well, when she's under the gun, when she's stressed out, when either there's changes in weather happening, when there's drought, when it's too hot, when there's problems with lack of food, when there's maybe the queen's gone and the colony's under stress because they know they've got to produce another queen fast or they're going to die out. All of these things cause stress. Survival causes stress. Now, when those stress levels go up within the colony, number one, they become sassy. Oh, brother, do they get mean. Not only that, but they also become more and more susceptible to disease. Now, as a lot of you may know from following our company over the last several years, everything we do with our bees is to minimize their stress, which is why we've turned people down for pollination. We don't want to be trucking our bees around the country. That's just too much stress on them. We don't want to be setting them up in an area where they'll be there for a week or two and then rip them out of there and truck them across the country to another spot, set them down there for a couple of weeks, rip them up. No, that's too much stress. We don't want to put them in an area where their food supply is in short supply. We want to make sure that they're in a good spot where there's plenty of water, plenty of forage, and it's stable. We don't want to have to worry about farmers spraying pesticides all over the areas, because that will cause stress on the bee as well as just poison them. So everything we do is designed specifically to minimize stress for these ladies. Now in the end, that means you end up with a much purer, happier, healthier bee. And when it comes down to our products, that means that you end up with a purer product, because we don't have to use chemicals on our hives to manage them. We don't have to put on the antibiotics that typically get put on preventatively. Does that even make sense? I didn't think it did. I'm not as crazy as they all say I am. Standard operating procedure in the beekeeping industry is to take antibiotics and put it in the colony, whether you've got a problem or not. Well, it's springtime and it's fall. Those are the times that we put down terramycin. No, you don't. You don't need to. You got a problem with varroa mites? Well, you get these rubber strips that are about yay long, and they've been impregnated with these organophosphate-based pesticides, and then you put on your big gloves and your hazmat gear and you walk out to the bees, and you open up the colony and you put the strip in there and you close it up, and you got to watch those MSDS sheets because, you don't want your employees to get sick. Wait a minute. If you've got something that's got danger written all over the MSDS sheet and you've got to wear hazmat gear in order to handle it, why would you be putting that in a beehive? Well, I tell you what, if you buy anyone else's lip balm that's got beeswax in it, guess what you're getting? You're getting all that filth, all of those chemicals that have been put on those beehives. Because the beeswax is a natural chemical sponge that's going to soak all of that stuff up to try to keep it from going into the bees' bodies. It's a beautiful structure. It's a beautiful synergistic universe within a beehive. Beautiful, perfect design. Now, because we don't use any of those chemicals, when you or your children put on our lip balm, you don't have to worry about those antibiotics or those organophosphate-based pesticides that each year have to get amped up worse and worse because they're not as effective as they were the previous year. You don't have to worry about that. We try to be pure and natural. We are not organic. In fact, we had some consultant come out and tell us, gosh and gollies, for $7,000 I can help you get your USDA organic certification. Wink, wink. Wait a minute. Wouldn't that be dishonest? I mean, think about it. How can a honeybee be organic? I'm getting worked up here, can you tell? How can a honeybee be organic? She can't. Because a honeybee is going to forage. Listen to this now. Listen. A honeybee is going to forage up to 12 square miles around her colony. She cannot be honestly considered organic because you cannot guarantee me within 12 square miles around her colony that whole area is not going to be 100% organic. You just can't. It's impossible. So, we've set our own standard, which is Little Honey's pure and natural. In the next few months, you're probably going to be reading more about this. It's upset quite a few people. It's also emboldened a lot of people to do the right thing. That's what it's designed for. We want beekeepers, we want agriculture to be going for what's best. We wanted to set a new standard for excellence within agriculture and within beekeeping, and that is 100% pure and natural. Better than organic. Because we don't allow you to take any shortcuts. We don't allow you to put anything into the colony that did not already come out. We don't allow you to strip away the honey and feed them corn syrup, or as Dad calls it, sewerip. We don't allow anything within our beehive that didn't already come out, which means when our bees need supplemented on their food storage, what do they get? They get frames of honey that they already stored that previous summer. Come springtime, when you need to, amp up the octane a little bit on their diet, what do? Do we go out and buy these pollen patties that are made of all kinds of yeast and food storage? And yeah, there's gluten in some of them. Those of you that are worried about gluten in your diet or trace amounts of gluten anywhere, well, guess what? I'm not trying to scare anybody here. I'm just telling you the facts. This junk gets put into people's colonies, beehives. Well, we don't do that. When springtime comes and the need arises, we will mix a paste of honey and their own pollen that they've developed, that they gathered that previous year. And we will take that pollen and that honey and we will scoop it out and we will put it in the colonies on the top bar so that they can eat it and that they can process it. And yeah, it's awesome. By the way, for all of you folks that are really heavy into exercise, if you want to give yourself something pre-workout that is going to blow your mind, take a little bit of our bee pollen, this stuff right here. Take a little bit of this bee pollen and mix it with honey. Just do a 1-to-1 ratio and you get this gorgeous golden paste and you eat it. You eat that stuff pre-workout. Look at that, I'm dropping stuff. You eat it pre-workout and you will end up with incredible strength and stamina. More importantly, and this is why the NFL is starting to use a lot of bee pollen within the training of their athletes. More importantly than just giving you fuel to do that workout, you are also providing your body all of the repair material that it needs, the building material that it needs to go in and repair those cells that have been strained and damaged during the workout. You're providing your cells, your muscle cells, all the nutrients that they need to produce those extra nuclei in that muscle fiber. What a beautiful thing. Post-workout, do it again. Get some more pollen, get some more honey. And I'll tell you what, I'm dropping more stuff. Hey, it's raining Bee Rescued. I wish it were. Well, these are some of our bees, and I'm going to leave you with some footage of working out in the bee yard and just enjoying the animal for what she is. Now, I'm sorry that this isn't a live broadcast. That's something that we are still working on, and I hope in the next couple weeks to have that ironed out as Google and Yahoo figure out how their control panels are going to be working. In the meantime, we will be posting onto the Facebook page the winners of this week's giveaway contest, this week's Propolis Care Package giveaway, and we're going to give away one Propolis Care Package, so make sure that you watch this video and let us know how you like it. Golly, they're pretty. I'm going to move this microphone over. You're going to hear some sassy noises and grinding and such while I move this. But I want you to hear how beautiful this sounds. They're one of the most beautiful animals on earth, as far as I'm concerned. I know I'm prejudiced. I know I'm biased at this point to what my favorite animal is. My kids will tell you that. But when you take the time to study this animal, when you take the time to understand her, on her terms, not making her fit the mold of our own perception. You will find an animal that is beautiful. You will find an animal that is central to cultures throughout history. She transcends history. You will find her in religious writings of multiple cultures. But you will find an animal that, left to herself, remains the same. She remains pure. She remains focused. And she survives. And she is a treasure. And the gifts that we are given that come out of the beehive are a blessing. Thank you for taking this time to sit with me. I hope that you've learned something. If you end up with any questions, please feel free to post those questions on our Facebook page. Contact us via our email, berescuedwebcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.